Can you say, WotC sucks? I'm going to read for you 2 separate introductions to the city of Sigil, which many of you know is the center of the Planescape D&D setting. And I want you to tell me honestly, which one sounds more inspiring to you?
Sigil is the crossroads of the multiverse, a city at the center of the Great Wheel. Connected to every plane of existence and the infinite worlds among them, the City of Doors brims with commerce, travel, schemes, and adventure. Sigil is commonly referred to as the Cage because the only way into or out of the city is through one of its countless portals, pathways controlled by the enigmatic Lady of Pain.
Boring! Some poets write raptures about the glories of their metropolis, sing praises about the sunset over the rooftops, and grow lyrical to the gentle clatter of their city's life. But no one sings that way about Sigil. The Cage is a gray, wet, dirty place, full of noise and brawling, slippery stone and razor vine. Oh, there's native poets, and they write about their home, but not about its glowing sunsets or walks through sweet-scented parks. They write about the things that shouldn't be seen in the dark alleys, about the way the streets rumble like a pit of dying beasts, or about the decay that cleanses the bones of the city. Now, I hope, like me, that you chose the latter, as it's almost objectively better written and much more evocative. While you can certainly go overboard in descriptives, that just about nailed it, didn't it? And perhaps that's why its source, the original Planescape box set from 1994, has stood the test of time and become much beloved. The first rather dry and dull description comes from Wizards of the Coast's recent cash grab. Adventures in the Multiverse. This is a product that doesn't really know what it wants to be. I'm sort of reminded of that old saying, your story was good and original. Unfortunately, the parts that were good weren't original. Parts that were original weren't very good. As a strict rules update of the City of Sigil and the Outlands for 5th edition, I suppose it's barely adequate, but it will leave you cold as ice with most of its passionless descriptions. And fans of the original will probably be seeking out their dentist with how hard they'll be gritting their teeth at its nauseating, cringy cuteness at times. The original box set was the brainchild of legendary David Zeb Cook, who worked on numerous D&D projects over the years. It's said in preparation, he listened to Philip Glass, Alexander Nevsky, read Einstein's Dreams, and watched movies like Naked Lunch. Conversely, Justice Armon, the lead designer of the new Planescape, I believe listened to Taylor Swift, read numerous cookbooks, as well as White Fragility, and probably watched Birds of Prey multiple times for his prep. Well, that, as well as copy-pastaing the bones of the original Planescape material. This is really a growing problem, not just in the RPG arena, but in entertainment in general. Things are becoming so self-referential due to the sheer lack of imagination, or maybe just fear of failure. Why try something truly different and take a risk when you can just rely on the work of better men? So this idea occurred to me only while I was researching this video and kind of steeping myself back into a world I hadn't been in for decades. What if one day the people of Sigil woke up and saw a twin of their own city slowly moving towards Sigil out from the ether? They panic. The Lady of Pain is not to be found. Maybe the end is nigh. But no, the twin city gently moves into position and attaches itself to Sigil. The city that was once a circle is now an 8. Or perhaps, if you squint a little, an infinity symbol. Why did it come? What's inside of it? Is it ancient or brand new? Is it inhabited at all? What are the laws there? Does the rule of 3 now become the rule of 8? How do you get into this twin city? Is there a portal where the two meet? Or would that just be too easy? Is it a plot of the gods to finally rid themselves of the one place they hold no sway? Now, ideas like that could have been fleshed out over a long period, but it would have taken people with true vision and talent to develop. But Wizards of the Coast isn't really interested in innovation anymore. They want a safe revenue stream. So creativity can only be so creative. Sure, release Planescape, but don't deviate at all where it matters most from the original. Also, make sure to throw in a lot of stuff from the Planescape Torment video game. Just throw a coat of ugly paint over it all to appeal to our core audience's inherent lack of taste. Take a setting that's supposed to be grim and sly with a touch of black humor and fill it with the occasional cutesy zoomer artwork and the OMG so random situations. File off some of those rough edges. The main book in this set, Sigil in the Outlands, is essentially just a pastiche of the original work. It competently, if soullessly, gives you everything you would need to run an adventure in Sigil and the Realm of the Outlands for 5th edition. Of course, it gives a few options for the players. When it comes to Sigil, it dutifully describes all of the things that make Sigil Sigil. Sedan chairs, razorvine portals, cranium rats, the Dabus, and of course, the Lady of Pain. But it's all done with the passion of an 80-year-old Victorian couple. It reads at times like an atlas instead of an inspiring piece of creative art. Gone is the cheesy, but in retrospect crucial cant of Sigil. Cutter, kip, bleaker. All these terms helped set Planescape apart from the rest of its settings. You could ignore it if you wanted, of course. But when I ran it, I always made sure to sprinkle in some of those terms. These bits of spice are absent almost completely in the new Planescape. We couldn't have that after all. Someone might make a TikTok video where they roll their eyes like a Barmy Burke. The original Planescape spent a lot of time reinforcing just how important tone was to have a successful campaign. It spoke eloquently about the factions and philosophies that battled for the control of souls in Sigil and beyond. When you take a look at how the factions are presented in Zeb Cook's original versus the new release, you'll see the difference between the two pretty starkly. Each representative of the faction drawn by the great Tony DiTerlizzi seems to embody what their faction represents with a single glance. In a microcosm of everything wrong with the new one, a simple, cold, metallic symbol of the faction is used instead. These would be fine as secondary pieces, but not nearly as inspiring as the original. There's not even a splash piece anywhere near here, showing maybe two factions coming to blows, physically or otherwise. And we should probably address the artwork. This is one area I'm not going to penalize the new books as much as you might think. Look, getting Tony DiTerlizzi for the original was akin to catching lightning in a bottle. Love or hate his work, you can't deny that it was unique, and that it really did define what Planescape was. In Adventures in the Multiverse, you have various artists. Some of it is actually quite good. Others merely put in a professional, if not particularly inspirational effort. A few just seem to be at odds with the aesthetic of Sigil itself. And because it's 5th edition, there's always going to be some pieces that simply don't belong anywhere near the product. These are pieces that do active harm to what the tone of the setting and D&D itself is supposed to be at its best. Just look here at what the representative of the Sensate faction was back in the mid-90s to what they think should represent the Sensate faction nowadays. This is a faction that is devoted to essentially hedonism. No comparison is so stark, yet so apropos. As we know, Wizards of the Coast has declared war on their core audience of white males. And nowhere can Wizards of the Coast show their contempt for white men more than in their artwork. In the scores of art pieces in this entire set, I believe I counted maybe 2 or 3, that's right, that had a white male as the prominent focus. It really is incredible, the lengths that they go to disavow their core audience. The new set also explores Under Sigil a bit, trying to glom on to the success of the now long-in-the-tooth Planescape Torment video game. And the tiresome Morty makes an appearance in both the monster book and the adventure that comes packed in. It seemed to me in the main book, too, they also pay attention to the market district, the food and entertainment of Sigil a bit more than the original, which is surely a trend in 5th edition. If you read or perhaps saw my original videos on Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, they are simply in love with all of that kind of stuff these days, festivals and the like. So in the end, you may be informed, but not really inspired by the main book in the set. It's sort of a cold, heartless, shameless cash grab. It's pretty clear that this set, like the now year-old Spelljammer, is not going to get much support. I think they've released a digital-only book focused on one building in the city. For contrast, I'm going to show you here all of the releases and support for the original Planescape setting, and I'll even throw in Spelljammer too. Now, unless Wizards of the Coast is hiding a ton of stuff, you are pretty much on your own as far as support goes for the new setting. Which is probably for the best, as the cupboards are so bare of talent at Wizards of the Coast right now that normal fans probably could and will produce much better content than they ever could these days. What a sad state of affairs, huh? I mean, in general, you'd be much better off tracking down the original set in physical format. After reading it, your head is going to be racing with adventure ideas. You'll have a firm picture in your mind's eye of what Sigil is supposed to be, and it would only be up to you and your group to fill it with adventure. There are 2 other books and a screen in the Slipcase set. By the way, I hate this format. While I did receive the Planescape set in PDF format as a gift, I got the Spelljammer set last year to review on the channel, and it has a similar layout to this one. And I physically measured that Spelljammer set, and I found that 1/3 of the space in the slipcase is just dedicated to the book covers. I'd much rather have a slew of soft covers in a true box set, written by someone who is competent and inspirational, rather than 3 subpar hardbacks. Funny how all my original Planescape and Birthright soft covers have stood the test of time. I think I've had to put 1 staple back into 1 Birthright book in the last 30 years. For those that think hardcover automatically means quality, Wizards of the Coast is doing their level best to destroy that assumption. As for the other 2 books in the new Planescape release, one is a monster book and the other is just an adventure. Again, very similar to Spelljammer last year. The monster book updates just a lot of the monsters from the original to 5th edition. The artwork ranges from pretty good for a few, the Demodans in particular, to downright embarrassing for others. Sprinkled throughout are call-out boxes with the increasingly annoying Morty, serving up pseudo-wisdom and what passes for humor in this dreary work.
Remember Morty?
The final book is an adventure, Turn of Fortune's Wheel. As I mentioned before, they can't produce anything truly original anymore, so Wizards of the Coast has to ape things that had the taste of success before. So players naturally wake up in a mortuary with Morty there to answer questions, a la Planescape Torment. There's also cringe-worthy Cursed Cakers, a casino where players are supposed to visit and play games, and almost unbelievably, an actual baseball game between angels and devils. There's more filler packed in as they travel the Outlands and go from levels 3 to 10, and then for some reason to level 17. The hook is apparently that the characters can die and then they can keep coming back.
Remember Planescape Torment?
This is all just really sad and depressing for anyone that had the chance to play or run the original box set. It was a lot of fun. To summarize, Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse is a shallow cash grab that doesn't try to add to the mythos of the setting in any appreciable way. It copies the original with none of its charm, and tries to sew on elements of the dead carcass of an old video game, as well as current-day cutesy fare. The only people that will like it is an increasingly smaller hardcore of fans. It's no secret that their recent releases of Candlekeep, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, and Spelljammer have sold terribly. Now Wizards has to rely on the cheap gimmick of the deck of many things and a silly book attached to it for a whopping $99 price tag. It seems like they're getting more and more desperate. The company is limping into the next edition of the game. But they still do have that magical name that the normal people will always pay attention to. So, in some respects, they seem to fail upwards. We can only hope that normal people start to explore other, better alternatives when they see what a cold, shallow mess products like this really are. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe and all that stuff. Join the channel if you want to financially support it. That's always great. And most importantly, though, join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. live for The Lair. That's our weekly live stream. It is always a fantastic time, and we love to interact with you guys, the fans. So take care and have a great day, won't you?
What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.